The stars had never known such peace. For 2,000 years, the Galactic Council had governed with wisdom and fairness. Wars were memories. Conflicts were solved with words, not weapons. The galaxy had learned to live together. Humanity had been part of this peace for nearly 1,800 years. When Earth first reached the stars and met the Council, humans were rough and aggressive. They carried weapons everywhere. They spoke of enemies and defense. The older species had worried about these newcomers. But humans surprised everyone. They listened, they learned, they changed. Over centuries, humanity became the Council's most peaceful members. Human scientists cured diseases that had plagued alien worlds for millennia. Human artists created music that made even the stone-cold Vrex weep. Human philosophers taught courses on ethics and compassion at every major university across the galaxy. Earth was beautiful now. The old scars of pollution and war had healed. Cities gleamed with silver towers surrounded by green forests. The oceans were clean and full of life. 47 human colony worlds dotted the galaxy, each one a paradise of learning and culture. The human military had become a joke, really. Their ancient warships sat in museums where school children took field trips. The great generals were now historians who gave lectures. The last human conflict had been a border dispute with the Peltharis, solved over dinner and wine. Young soldiers trained not for war, but for rescue operations and disaster relief. Ambassador Chen Wei stood before the Council every month, his silver hair and kind eyes making him look like everyone's favorite grandfather. He spoke of human achievements in medicine and art. He proposed treaties and trade agreements. Other species had begun calling humans the gentle giants because they were tall and strong, but wouldn't hurt anyone. The younger species especially loved humans. They thought humans had always been this way. They didn't study human history much. Why would they? The past was violent and ugly. The present was beautiful. Then the Kreeth Dominion rebelled. The Kreeth were a warrior species from the outer reaches. They had joined the Council only 300 years ago and never really fit in. They valued strength over wisdom, conquest over cooperation. For decades, they had complained about Council rules being too soft, too weak. When the Kreeth finally attacked Council outposts in the Outer Rim, everyone was shocked. This wasn't supposed to happen anymore. Wars were ancient history. The Council mobilized its peacekeeping fleets. They were small, mostly designed for showing presence, not fighting real battles. The Kreeth crushed them easily. System after system fell. The Council panicked. Senior Arbiter Velshan called an emergency session. Velshan was a Thalaxian, tall and thin with skin like blue crystal. He was brilliant and ambitious, and he believed he had a solution. "We need leverage," Velshan announced to the assembled council. "The Kreeth respect only strength. We must show them we are serious." "What do you propose?" asked Councillor Imresh, a cautious Peltharis who always worried about consequences. "The human colonies in the border regions are vulnerable," Velshan said calmly. "We take their children into protective custody. We ensure humanity cannot aid the Kreeth rebellion. We demonstrate that the Council will do whatever necessary to maintain order." The chamber erupted in argument. Half the Council members shouted that this was insane. The other half listened with dark interest. "You want to take hostages?" Ambassador Chen stood slowly, his face pale. "You want to threaten children?" "Not threaten," Velshan said smoothly. "Protect. We would keep them safe in neutral space while this crisis resolves. Humanity is powerful, Ambassador. Your 47 worlds, your resources, your influence. We cannot risk you supporting the rebels. This ensures your cooperation." "We would never support the Kreeth." Chen's voice rose, anger breaking through his usual calm. "Then you have nothing to fear from our proposal," Velshan replied. "The vote will proceed." The vote was close, 12 in favor, 3 against, 4 abstentions. It passed. Ambassador Chen looked around the chamber at faces he had called friends for 30 years. Some wouldn't meet his eyes. Others looked apologetic but said nothing. "This is a mistake," Chen said quietly. Please reconsider. The decision is made, Velshan announced. The operation will commence immediately. The raids happened within hours. Council ships jumped into orbit above human colony worlds in the border regions. They landed troops in the middle of the night. They went to schools and homes and parks. They took children between the ages of 5 and 15. They were efficient and quick. Parents screamed and cried and begged. Human colonial security forces were ordered to stand down by their own governments, following directives from Earth. Not a single shot was fired in resistance. 200,000 children were loaded onto transport ships. They cried for their parents. They asked why this was happening. The council soldiers gave them blankets and food and told them everything would be fine. The children were taken to a massive space station called the Cradle, positioned in neutral space far from any inhabited system. The station was a fortress, designed to be impregnable. Weapons platforms surrounded it. Shield generators could withstand a supernova. The Council stationed 50 ships there as permanent guards. The galaxy watched and waited for humanity's response. Earth was silent for 3 days. Then Ambassador Chen appeared before the Council again. He looked older somehow, his shoulders bent. His voice was tired. "The human government requests the immediate return of our children," he said. "We will comply with any reasonable verification measures. We will accept observers on our worlds. We will open our communication networks for inspection. Please, just give us back our children." It was humiliating. The mighty humans begging like children themselves. Velshan smiled. "Your compliance is noted and appreciated, Ambassador. The children will be returned when the Kreeth crisis is resolved. Until then, they remain in our protective custody." "How long?" Chen asked. "As long as necessary." News feeds across the galaxy showed the human response. On Earth and the colony worlds, parents gathered in parks and public squares. They wept. They held vigils. They prayed to whatever gods they believed in. But they didn't riot. They didn't rebel. They didn't mobilize for war. Human trade ships continued their routes. Human scientists kept working on council projects. Human teachers still taught alien students. Everything continued normally, except for the sadness that seemed to hang over every human world. The council congratulated itself. Velshan gave speeches about difficult decisions and the burdens of leadership. He talked about the new era where the council would be stronger, more decisive, more willing to do what was necessary. Other species watched the humans carefully. They seemed so broken, so defeated. What no one noticed was the silence itself. Humans had always been talkative, social, eager to chat with alien friends and colleagues. Now they were quiet, polite but distant. What no one noticed were the human civilian ships that started taking odd routes through space, claiming engine troubles or navigation errors. What no one noticed were the ancient human data archives being accessed millions of times, particularly the military history sections that no one had looked at in centuries. What no one noticed were the deep space monitoring stations going offline one by one around human space, their signals failing for reasons attributed to solar storms. What no one understood was that humans hadn't forgotten who they used to be. They had just hoped they would never need to remember. 2 weeks passed. The galaxy began to relax. The Kreeth rebellion was stalling. Without new supplies or allies, their advance had stopped. Council military forces, though small, were slowly regrouping. Senior Arbiter Velshan held daily briefings where he pointed to maps showing stabilized front lines. He smiled more now. "You see," he told the Council, "decisive action works. The humans are pacified. The Kreeth see they have no support coming. Soon this will all be over, and we will have established important precedents about council authority." The human children on the Cradle were settling into a routine. Council staff had set up schools and recreation areas. The children were scared and homesick, but they were being fed and housed. Medical staff checked on them daily. No one was being harmed exactly, just held. Ambassador Chen continued attending council sessions. He looked tired all the time now. His speeches were brief. He made requests for updates about the children's welfare. He asked again and again for their release. Each time, Velshan gave the same answer: when the crisis ends. Human cooperation was complete. Earth had opened its communication networks to council monitoring. Human ships submitted to searches without complaint. Human colony governors sent regular reports proving they weren't aiding the Kreeth in any way. It was almost boring how obedient humans had become. Council intelligence officers filed their daily reports. No unusual activity in human space, they wrote over and over. No military mobilization detected. Trade patterns normal. Communications normal. Human government continues full cooperation. Velshan showed these reports to skeptical council members. You see, they're rational beings. They understand the situation. They know resistance would only endanger their children. But there was one person who wasn't satisfied. Tertial was a junior analyst in the council archives, a young Kelthian with green scales and large, curious eyes. Her job was boring, usually. She cataloged old records and maintained databases. No one paid much attention to her. But Tertial had noticed something odd. The human data archives were seeing unusual access patterns. Normally, those old Earth files got maybe a few dozen requests per month, mostly from historians. In the past 2 weeks, they had received millions of requests. She dug deeper. The requests were coming from addresses all over human space, but they had patterns. They were focused on specific time periods, Earth's 21st through 23rd centuries, the violent years before humans became peaceful. Tertial started reading those files herself. What she found terrified her. Humans hadn't evolved to be peaceful. They had evolved to be the deadliest predators on their planet. Earth was a nightmare world where everything tried to kill everything else. Humans had climbed to the top through intelligence and ruthless aggression. Their early history was nothing but war. They fought over land, resources, religions, philosophies, and sometimes just because they didn't like each other. They invented weapons of horrible creativity: guns, bombs, missiles, chemical weapons, biological weapons. Then they invented nuclear weapons and nearly destroyed themselves. 3 billion humans died in the unification wars that finally brought Earth under one government. The planet was scarred with radioactive craters. Entire regions were uninhabitable for centuries. After that, humans had chosen peace. Not because they were naturally peaceful, but because they had scared themselves. They had looked into the abyss of their own destructive capability and decided to step back from the edge. They had spent 1,000 years becoming the gentle beings the galaxy knew, but the capacity for violence hadn't disappeared. It had just been locked away. Tertial found old human military doctrines buried in the archives. Terms she had never heard before: total war, scorched earth, mutually assured destruction, overwhelming force, acceptable losses, strategic bombing, civilian targets. The concepts made her physically ill. She wrote a report and requested a meeting with Senior Arbiter Velshan. It took 3 days to get on his schedule. When she finally stood before him in his luxurious office, he barely looked up from his data pad. "Make it quick, analyst. I'm very busy." "Sir, I've been studying human history. I think we may have made a serious error taking their children." Now Velshan looked up, his blue crystalline face showing annoyance. "We've been through this. The decision is made." "Sir, humans aren't naturally peaceful. They chose to be peaceful after nearly destroying themselves. Their old military capabilities were," she searched for words, "terrifying. And I think they might be accessing those old files to remember how to." "Stop." Velshan held up one long finger. "Analyst Tertial, you're young, you don't understand politics. Yes, humans were once violent, so were most species. The Vrex used to eat their enemies. The Peltharis practiced ritual combat to the death. Everyone grows up. Humans have been peaceful for 2,000 years. 2,000 years. That's longer than many species' entire recorded histories. But sir, the access logs show nothing but humans researching their own history during a stressful time. Perfectly normal. Velshan leaned back in his chair. Do you know how many human ships we've searched in the past 2 weeks? 3,412. Do you know what we found? Trading goods, medical supplies, art. Not a single weapon larger than a personal sidearm. What if they're hiding? They're not. Velshan's voice went cold. I've been in politics for 400 years, analyst. I know when a species is preparing for war. There are signs. Industrial production increases, resource hoarding, propaganda, military recruitment, training exercises. Humans are showing none of these signs. Zero. Tertial's shoulders slumped. I just think we should be careful. Your concern is noted and dismissed. Return to your duties. She left his office feeling sick but didn't know what else to do. She was just a junior analyst. Who would listen to her? Meanwhile, in human space, things continued normally. Too normally. A Peltharis merchant named Kresh had been trading with humans for 60 years. He had human friends on a dozen colony worlds. They would message him regularly, chatting about family and business and silly jokes. The messages had stopped. Not completely. His human contacts still replied when he sent messages, but the replies were short, polite, distant, like talking to strangers. Kresh mentioned this to other traders. They had noticed the same thing. Humans had gone quiet. Deep space monitoring stations continued failing around human territory. The council sent repair crews, but the stations were old and in remote locations. It would take months to fix them all. Not urgent anyway. Everything seemed peaceful. Human civilian ships continued taking odd routes. When questioned, they always had reasonable explanations. Engine trouble, navigation computer glitches, avoiding an ion storm. Each excuse made sense individually. No one looked at the pattern. 3 weeks after the children were taken, Ambassador Chen requested a special session of the council. Everyone attended. This was unusual enough to be interesting. Chen walked to the center of the chamber. He looked different, straighter. His tired appearance was gone. His eyes were clear and hard. I come before you one final time to request the return of our children, he said. His voice was steady, without pleading. You have had 3 weeks to see that humanity poses no threat to the council. We have cooperated fully. We have submitted to every demand. Now return our children. Velshan looked bored. Ambassador, we've had this conversation. I am giving you 24 hours, Chen interrupted. Return every child, unharmed, to their families within 24 hours. The chamber went silent. That was not how you spoke to the council. Velshan's crystalline face flushed darker blue, his species' sign of anger. You're giving us an ultimatum, you. Yes, Chen's voice didn't waver. Velshan laughed. Other council members joined in. The idea of humans making demands was absurd. And if we refuse? Velshan asked, still chuckling. Ambassador Chen reached up and slowly removed his diplomatic insignia, the silver pin that marked him as Earth's representative. He held it for a moment, then let it drop to the floor. It clinked loudly in the quiet chamber. Then may history forgive us for what we're about to do, Chen said softly. You don't remember what we were. You forgot that we chose peace, which means we can unchoose it. You thought our gentleness was weakness. You thought our patience was inability. He looked around the chamber, meeting every council member's eyes. You took our children, and you did it because you thought we were harmless. You're about to learn the most expensive lesson in galactic history. Are you threatening us? Velshan stood, his voice rising. You dare threaten the Galactic Council? No, Chen said. I'm done threatening. I'm making a promise. 24 hours, return our children, or we will come get them. And we will go through anyone who stands in our way. He turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the council members looked at each other. Some were angry, some were nervous, most were confused. Velshan laughed again, but it sounded forced now. Seal all human embassy offices. I want Chen detained for questioning. But when security forces reached the human embassy, it was empty. Every human staff member was gone. The building was cleaned out. On the ambassador's desk, they found one thing, a data chip. When they played it, they saw Ambassador Chen's face. "You have 24 hours," he repeated. "We're coming for our children. Get out of the way or be moved." The message ended. Velshan ordered increased security at the cradle. He mobilized additional fleets. He sent messages to human space demanding explanations. No one answered. In the deep dark between stars, in places no one was watching anymore because the monitoring stations were down, shapes began to move. Big shapes, thousands of them. Humanity was done asking. Now they were coming. 24 hours passed in tense silence. The Galactic Council waited. Some members argued they should negotiate. Others insisted humanity was bluffing. Velshan refused to budge. "We cannot show weakness," he declared. "If we surrender to human demands, every species will think they can threaten the Council. The children stay where they are." When the deadline expired, nothing happened for exactly 6 minutes. Then every Council military installation, within 50 light-years of human space, vanished. Not destroyed slowly, not damaged, vanished, deleted from existence in flashes of white light. The orbital defense platform above Kalthara Prime exploded. The military shipyard at Tarsus Station disintegrated. The listening post in the Vega cluster went silent mid-transmission. Base after base, station after station, all within seconds of each other. Council military commanders stared at their displays in horror. 53 installations, gone just like that. And they hadn't seen the attacks coming. Velshan stood in the Council's military command center, his crystalline face pale. What happened? What hit us? The military coordinator, a four-armed Krellian named Voss, worked frantically at multiple screens. "I don't know, sir. We didn't detect any weapons fire, any ships, anything. The bases just exploded." "That's impossible." "I'm showing you what happened." Voss pulled up recordings from the few installations that had managed to transmit before dying. The videos showed the same thing. Civilian-marked ships suddenly lighting up with weapons that shouldn't exist, firing munitions that moved faster than sensors could track. One video showed a human cargo freighter. In the recording, panels along its hull suddenly slid open. Missile pods emerged and fired in a single salvo. The missiles moved like nothing Voss had ever seen, impossible acceleration, and the military station they targeted simply ceased to exist. The freighter's hull shimmered, and suddenly it looked completely different, bristling with weapons and armor. "Disguised warships," Voss whispered. "They've been moving through our space for weeks. We searched them and found nothing because they hid their weapons somehow." "How many?" Velshan asked. "Unknown, but if the civilian traffic patterns are any indication," Voss calculated quickly, "hundreds, maybe thousands." The command center's main display lit up with incoming messages. Reports flooded in from across Council space. Human ships were attacking everywhere, not the ships they knew about. New ships, big ships, ships that looked like they were built with technology decades more advanced than anything the Council had. Where had they come from? Velshan's hands shook as he read the reports. The answer was obvious now. Those engine troubles that human ships reported, they were mapping Council defenses. Those odd routes through space. They were avoiding detection while moving into position. Those failed monitoring stations around human space. Humanity had deliberately blinded the Council. And they had been building warships. Somewhere in deep space, in hidden shipyards the Council never found, humanity had been preparing. "Mobilize everything," Velshan ordered. "Send every available ship to defensive positions. Recall all fleets from the Kreeth front." "Sir, that will leave the Kreeth unchecked." "Do it," Velshan screamed. Messages went out across Council space. Every ship, every soldier, every defensive position went on highest alert. But it was already too late. 7 council fleets had been stationed in defensive positions across the inner territories. They were good fleets, well-trained, experienced from peacekeeping operations. 3,000 ships total. In the first 6 hours of fighting, 5 of those fleets were destroyed. Not defeated, destroyed. 1 fleet managed to retreat in chaos. 1 fleet surrendered immediately when they saw what happened to the others. The casualty reports were impossible. Thousands of ships gone, tens of thousands of personnel, and human losses. 47 personnel, not ships, personnel, killed during boarding actions. The galaxy watched in shock as the humans they thought they knew transformed into something from nightmares. Humanity sent a broadcast on every communication channel. It was a human woman, dressed in a military uniform that looked ancient and modern at the same time. Her face was hard and cold. "We are the Human Defense Fleet," she said. Her voice was calm, which made it more terrifying. 3 weeks ago, the Galactic Council seized 200,000 of our children. We asked nicely for their return. We begged. We pleaded. We were refused. She leaned forward slightly. We tried to be better than what we were. We spent 2,000 years learning peace, building culture, helping others. We wanted to believe the universe was safe for our children. You proved us wrong. The screen behind her lit up with images, battle plans, ship designs, station layouts, detailed information about every council military installation in the galaxy. This information shows you that we have been planning this operation for 3 weeks. Every defensive position you have, every ship you can field, every weapon you possess. We know about them. We planned for them. Return our children now, unharmed, or we will take them back through the ashes of your governments. The broadcast ended. Velshan stared at the blank screen. This is insane. They can't fight the entire council. We have thousands of ships, millions of personnel across hundreds of worlds. Sir, Voss said quietly, we had those things past tense. The council convened an emergency session. Half the members wanted immediate surrender. They should give back the children, apologize, beg for mercy. The other half, led by Velshan, refused. If we surrender to this aggression, the council is finished, Velshan argued. We are the lawful government of this galaxy. We cannot bow to terrorist demands. They're not terrorists, they're parents, shouted Councillor Emresh. Parents whose children we took. I voted against this madness from the beginning. The vote was legal and proper. Legal, we kidnapped 200,000 children. The argument raged for hours. Finally, Velshan played his final card. We still have the children, they want them back. Fine, let them come. We'll make the cradle our line in the sand. We'll gather every available ship there. Let's see how brave humans are when their children are in the crossfire. It was a terrible plan. Some council members said so loudly, but Velshan had enough support to make it happen. Orders went out. Every council ship that could move was directed to the cradle. 300 ships had been stationed there already. Now they sent everything else that wasn't destroyed or surrendered. In 2 days, 1,200 ships assembled around the fortress station. It was the largest concentration of military force the galaxy had seen in 2,000 years. Admiral Kresh commanded the defense. He was a Vrex, massive and armored, a veteran of the old wars before the peace. He believed in duty and honor and following orders. We will hold this position, he told his officers. The children are safe inside the cradle. The humans will have to go through us to get them, and when they see the cost of attacking us, they will negotiate. But some officers weren't convinced. Admiral, the humans destroyed 5 fleets like they were swatting insects. 1,200 ships might not be enough. It will be enough, Kresh said firmly. This is every mobile asset the council has. The humans are good, yes, but they're not gods. They can be killed. Ships can be destroyed. They'll see our numbers and think twice. Human fleets advanced on 3 fronts toward the cradle. Every council world in their path received the same message. Surrender, and you will not be harmed. Resist and we will remove you. Most surrendered immediately. Their governments had seen the broadcasts, the casualty reports, the footage of council ships being torn apart. They weren't stupid. A few worlds tried to resist. They thought their defenses would hold. They thought humanity was bluffing about their advanced weapons. They were wrong. The human attack on Pelthar IV became legendary. The planet had refused to surrender, thinking its orbital defense grid was impenetrable. Humanity deployed weapons the galaxy thought were theoretical. Causality mines that made ships stop existing retroactively. Quantum disruption bombs that tore apart matter at the molecular level. Swarms of AI-guided drones that never stopped coming. The battle lasted 4 hours. Every defense platform was destroyed. Every ship was disabled or destroyed. But true to their word, humans didn't target civilians. They didn't bomb cities. They removed military capabilities and moved on. The precision was almost scarier than the destruction. Humans weren't raging out of control. They were executing a plan with perfect efficiency. Governments started collapsing. 5 council member species withdrew from the council entirely and declared neutrality. They sent messages to humanity promising they would not interfere. Some even apologized for not voting against taking the children in the first place. Velshan watched his coalition crumble. In a desperate move, his government arrested him and contacted humanity, offering to hand him over as a peace offering. Humanity's response was cold. Keep him. We're coming for our children. Everything else can wait. 3 weeks after the war started, human fleets arrived at the cradle. Admiral Kresh watched them come. His sensors showed 400 human warships approaching in perfect formation. Big ships, capital ships, each one bristling with weapons that shouldn't exist. But he had 1,200 ships, 3-to-1 odds in his favor. He opened a channel to the human fleet. This is Admiral Kresh of the Galactic Council Defense Fleet. You are ordered to withdraw immediately. We have overwhelming force. We will defend this station and the children inside. A human face appeared on his screen, an older man with gray hair and hard eyes. This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen, Human Defense Fleet. You are ordered to stand down, open the cradle's docking bays, and release every child unharmed. You have 1 hour. I cannot do that. Then you will die, all of you. We will kill every single person between us and our children. This is not a threat. This is information. 1 hour. The channel closed. Kresh looked at his officers. Battle stations. Prepare for combat. Do not, under any circumstances, harm the children inside, but defend this position with everything we have. 59 minutes later, exactly on schedule, the human fleet opened fire. And Admiral Kresh realized he had made a terrible mistake. The Battle of the Cradle didn't look like the battles Admiral Kresh remembered from the old days. There was no honor in it, no glory, just efficiency and overwhelming violence. The human fleet split into 4 groups as they advanced. Kresh ordered his ships to focus fire on one group, trying to overwhelm them with numbers. It was sound tactics, standard tactics. The human ships didn't care. They deployed weapons Kresh had never imagined. Reality itself seemed to break around some of their shots. Space warped and twisted. Ships that were hit didn't explode. They just stopped being there, erased from existence so completely that sensors couldn't even detect debris. Kresh's flagship shuddered as a human weapon hit their shields. The shields held, but just barely. The power drain was enormous. Return fire, he ordered. His ships launched everything they had. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic projectiles. Thousands of weapons streaking through space toward the human fleet. The humans deployed countermeasures Kresh had never seen. Swarms of tiny drones that intercepted missiles mid-flight. Energy fields that bent laser fire away harmlessly. Point defense so accurate that kinetic rounds were destroyed before they could hit. And when Council weapons did hit human ships, the damage was minimal. Their armor was too strong, their shields too powerful. "How is this possible?" one of Kresh's officers whispered. "Where did they get this technology?" Kresh understood now, too late. Humanity hadn't been building weapons for 3 weeks. They had been building them for years, maybe decades, hidden away in deep space in systems no one explored. They had been preparing for this while pretending to be peaceful. They had never forgotten how to be warriors. They just hid it very, very well. The battle raged for 2 hours. Kresh watched helplessly as his ships died. The human fleet moved through his formations like knives through paper. They were coordinated perfectly, each ship knowing exactly where every other ship was, supporting each other, covering weaknesses. His communications officer shouted over the noise of battle. "Admiral, Captain T-Vex of the 2nd Squadron is requesting permission to surrender." "Denied, we hold this position." "Admiral, the 2nd Squadron doesn't exist anymore. They're all dead." Kresh looked at his tactical display. Red icons everywhere, showing destroyed ships. Of his 1,200 vessels, fewer than 800 were still fighting, and they had barely damaged the human fleet. "Sir," another officer's voice cracked with panic. "Human boarding craft approaching. They're targeting the station directly." "Shoot them down." "We're trying, they're too fast." Kresh switched his view to external cameras. He watched as human boarding craft, small and heavily armored, dodged through the battle. They moved with impossible agility, avoiding fire, weaving between explosions. They slammed into the cradle's hull and began cutting through. "Security teams to breach points, defend the children." But Kresh knew it was over. He had failed. The humans were coming for their children and nothing would stop them. He opened a channel to the human fleet. "This is Admiral Kresh. I request terms for surrender." The human admiral's face appeared. Marcus Chen looked tired but determined. "Open all docking bays. Withdraw all armed personnel from the sections where children are held. Do it now." "If I do that, you'll kill my people during the boarding." "If you don't do it, we'll kill your people anyway. But if you comply, anyone who doesn't resist will live. That's my only offer." Kresh looked around his bridge. His officers stared back at him. They were defeated and they knew it. "All ships cease fire," Kresh said quietly. "All stations open docking bays. Security teams withdraw from child housing sections but remain armed and ready." He cut the channel and slumped in his chair. 2,000 years of peace ended because the Council took children from the one species that would never forgive it. The human boarding teams moved through the cradle with terrifying precision. They weren't the gentle humans the galaxy knew. These were soldiers, trained and equipped for war. They wore powered armor that made them look like metal demons. They carried weapons that could punch through bulkheads. Any Council soldier who raised a weapon died instantly. Any soldier who dropped their weapon and raised their hands was zip-tied and left alive. The humans weren't cruel, but they weren't gentle either. They had a mission, and nothing would stop them. The children were held in the central habitation ring, designed to be the safest part of the station. The humans cut through every barrier, blasted through every locked door, destroyed every defensive position. When they finally reached the habitation ring, they found 200,000 human children huddled together, scared and crying. Council caretakers stood nearby, unarmed, hands raised in surrender. The human soldiers stopped. For a moment their military efficiency cracked. One soldier, a woman whose armor had her name stenciled Martinez, pulled off her helmet. She was crying. "It's okay," she said to the nearest children, her voice breaking. "We're here, you're safe, we're taking you home." The children stared for a moment, then rushed forward. They grabbed onto the soldiers, sobbing, asking for their parents. The soldiers held them, these warriors who had just killed their way through a space station, now cradling children and promising everything would be okay. More human ships docked with the cradle. Medical teams rushed in to check each child. They scanned for injuries, for signs of abuse, for any harm. Most children were physically fine. Scared, traumatized, but unhurt. 17 children had been harmed during captivity. Nothing severe, mostly accidents or rough handling. But 17 was 17 too many. The human soldiers who learned about those 17 went very, very quiet. They didn't shout or rage. They just marked the names of the council personnel responsible and moved on with their mission. But everyone could feel the temperature drop when those soldiers passed by. Within 6 hours, all 200,000 children were evacuated to human medical ships. They were given food, water, blankets, and immediate psychological support. Messages were sent to their families. Your child is safe. We're bringing them home. Across human space, billions of people wept with relief. Across the rest of the galaxy, billions of people watched in shock as humanity broadcast footage of the rescue. They showed the children being carried out by soldiers who handled them like they were made of glass. They showed medical staff checking each child with tears running down their faces. They showed the moment children were reunited with parents via video call. It was propaganda, yes, but it was effective. The galaxy saw that humanity hadn't been lying. This was about the children, only the children. When the last child was safely away, the human fleet withdrew from the cradle. They left Admiral Kresh and his surviving ships alone. They didn't destroy the station. They didn't execute prisoners. They just took their children and left. But before they left, Fleet Admiral Chen sent one final message to the Galactic Council. We have our children back. Now we want justice. The casualty reports from the war were devastating. The Council had lost 4.7 million military personnel. 847 ships had been destroyed. 12 space stations were gone. 34 military installations had been wiped out. Human losses: 2,400 military personnel, 31 ships. The numbers were so lopsided they seemed fake, but they weren't. Humanity had prepared perfectly, executed flawlessly, and shown absolutely no mercy to anyone standing between them and their children. Several council governments collapsed entirely. Citizens revolted against leaders who had supported taking the children. The council itself fractured. Some species wanted to keep fighting. Most wanted peace at any price. Velshan, the senior arbiter who had proposed taking the children, was found hiding in a bunker on his homeworld. His own government arrested him and announced they would cooperate fully with whatever justice humanity demanded. Ambassador Chen, no longer wearing his diplomatic insignia, appeared before what remained of the council. The chamber was half empty. Many members had fled or been overthrown. Humanity seeks no territory, Chen said. His voice was calm again, like the grandfather everyone remembered, but his eyes were different now, harder. We seek no reparations for damage to our ships or personnel. We don't want your money or your resources. The council members waited nervously. We want accountability. Every council member who voted to take our children will face trial. Every military officer who participated in the seizure will face trial. Every person who harmed a child while they were captive will face trial. What kind of trial? Asked Councillor Emresh, one of the few who had voted against the seizure. Fair ones, public ones, with evidence and testimony and the right to defense. We're not monsters, Chen said, but there will be justice, and there will be consequences. The trials took 6 months. They were held on a neutral station under human security. Every session was broadcast across the galaxy. Evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. The accused were allowed to speak in their defense. Velshan's trial was the longest. He argued that he had been acting for the good of the council, that taking the children was a legitimate security measure, that humanity's response was disproportionate and criminal. The human judge, a former peacekeeper who had spent decades doing humanitarian work, listened to everything. Then she delivered the verdict. You took children, not soldiers, not criminals, children. You took them to use as leverage against their parents. That is not security policy. That is terrorism, and humanity will never forget it. Velshan and 6 other senior officials were sentenced to life imprisonment on a human penal colony, not a torture facility, just a secure prison where they would spend the rest of their lives, comfortable enough to not be cruel, but they would never be free. Lesser officials received shorter sentences or fines. Soldiers who had just followed orders were mostly released with time served. The council caretakers who had actually looked after the children on the cradle, they were released with no charges. Several human families even sent them thank you messages for keeping the children safe. Humanity was angry, yes, but they were also fair. When the trials ended, Ambassador Chen addressed the galaxy one final time. The Galactic Council is dissolved. It failed in its most basic duty, protecting the innocent. A new governing body will be formed, with new rules and new safeguards. Humanity will hold a permanent seat with veto power over any military action. Some species protested. Humanity was imposing its will through force. Chen's response was simple. Yes, we are, because we can, because we must, because we will never again allow anyone to threaten our children. If you don't like it, you're welcome to try removing us. No one tried. The galaxy had learned its lesson. 1 year after the war ended, Earth looked the same as it always had. Beautiful cities surrounded by green forests, clean oceans full of life, children playing in parks, artists creating, scientists researching. But the galaxy knew that things had changed forever. The human children who had been taken were home with their families. The younger ones were recovering well with therapy and support. The older ones, the teenagers who remembered everything clearly, were different now. Quieter, more serious. They had learned lessons about the universe that no child should have to learn. Some of them, when they turned 18, enlisted in the Human Defense Fleet. They said they wanted to make sure nothing like that ever happened to anyone else. Their parents supported them, though it broke their hearts to watch their children become soldiers. The Human Defense Fleet itself was no longer hidden. The ships that had destroyed Council forces now patrolled human space openly. They were massive, powerful, and numerous. Humanity had revealed that they had been building them for 40 years, ever since a strategic planning committee decided that relying entirely on Council protection was foolish. Trust but verify, one human admiral explained to a journalist. We wanted peace. We chose peace, but we're not stupid. We made sure we could defend ourselves if peace failed. The hidden shipyards where the fleet had been built were opened for inspections. Alien observers were amazed by the scale. Dozens of massive facilities scattered through deep space, each one capable of producing warships. The construction had been done in secret, with materials slowly diverted over decades, workers sworn to secrecy. It was the biggest intelligence failure in galactic history. The Council had been watching humanity constantly and never noticed. How did we miss this? One former Council intelligence officer asked during a public inquiry. The human response was simple. You saw what you expected to see. Peaceful humans doing peaceful things. You never looked deeper because you never thought you needed to. The new Galactic Assembly, replacing the old Council, had very different rules. Every species had a voice, but military actions required unanimous approval from a security committee. Humanity held one of the permanent seats. So did 4 other species known for their wisdom and restraint. Any proposal to use military force had to pass all 5 security committee members. Humanity had promised to use their veto rarely, only for actions they considered truly dangerous. In the first year, they vetoed 3 proposals. Each time, they explained their reasoning publicly. Each time, other species looked at the proposals and realized humanity was probably right. The galaxy was learning to trust human judgment, though that trust came from fear as much as respect. Human colonies continued to thrive. The border worlds where children had been taken received extra support. Counseling centers, new schools, economic development. Humanity poured resources into healing those communities. A memorial was built on Earth in Geneva, the old capital where humanity had first unified. It was a simple design, a wall with 200,000 names carved in stone. The children who had been taken. Beneath their names, in smaller letters, were the names of the 2,400 human soldiers who had died bringing them home. People visited the memorial every day. They left flowers, they touched names, they cried. Parents brought their children to see it to teach them why it mattered. "This is why we stay strong," they would say. "This is why we never let our guard down, because when we did, this happened." The human warships that patrolled space now were a constant reminder. They were beautiful in their own way, sleek and powerful, but they were also frightening. Everyone knew what those ships could do. Other species began asking questions. How advanced was human technology really? The weapons they had used in the war were decades beyond anything else in the galaxy. What else did they have that they hadn't shown? Humanity refused to answer. "We revealed what we needed to reveal," was the standard response. "The rest remains our business." It made everyone nervous, but it also made everyone very careful about how they treated humans. One day, about 18 months after the war, an old Kelthian with green scales appeared at the memorial in Geneva. She stood for a long time, reading names. A human veteran who worked as a memorial guide approached her. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I'm Tertial," she said. "I was an analyst for the old council. I tried to warn them. I tried to tell them that humans were dangerous, that taking your children was a terrible mistake." The veteran studied her. Did they listen? Number Velshon thought I was being paranoid. He thought 2,000 years of peace had made you soft. She looked at the veteran with sad eyes. "I read your history, your military doctrines, your wars. I knew what you were capable of, but no one believed me." Would it have mattered if they had? "I don't know. Maybe they would have returned the children immediately. Maybe not." Tertial touched one of the names on the wall gently. "I came to apologize. I was part of a government that did this to you. Even though I voted against it, I was still part of it." The veteran was quiet for a moment. "What happened to you after the council fell?" "I work for the new assembly now. Analysis and research, trying to prevent future mistakes." She smiled sadly. "Trying to make sure everyone remembers what happens when you threaten someone's children." "Good," the veteran said. "We need people like you, people who remember." Tertial looked at him with surprise. "You're not angry with me." "You tried to stop it. That counts for something." He gestured at the memorial. "We're angry at the people who did this. The people who thought they could use children as tools, not at everyone who was part of the council." "Will you forgive us? The galaxy, I mean." The veteran thought about that for a long time. "We already have, mostly. That's why you're still alive to ask the question. If we wanted revenge against everyone who was part of the council, the war would still be going. We'd be burning worlds and executing millions." "Then why the warships? Why the show of force?" "Because forgiveness doesn't mean stupidity." The veteran looked up at the sky where human patrol ships could be seen as bright points of light. "We forgave you, but we'll never forget, and we'll never be helpless again." Tertial nodded slowly. "That's fair, I suppose." "More than fair," the veteran said. "We could have done much worse. We showed restraint. We only killed people who stood between us and our children. We didn't target civilians. We didn't destroy your worlds. We could have. We chose not to." "Why?" The veteran smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Because we're still trying to be better than what we were. We still want peace. We still believe in cooperation and culture and helping others. Taking our children didn't destroy that. It just reminded us that sometimes you have to be willing to fight for the things you love." Tertial stayed at the memorial for another hour, reading names and thinking. When she left, she understood something important. Humanity had changed, but not in the way the galaxy feared. They hadn't become mindless war machines or ruthless conquerors. They had just stopped pretending they couldn't be dangerous. The years passed. The galaxy adjusted to the new reality. Trade continued. Culture was exchanged. Scientists from different species worked together on projects. Artists collaborated. The good parts of galactic civilization continued. But everyone was more careful now, more respectful. No one made casual assumptions about humanity being soft or weak or easy to push around. The phrase, "they have our children," entered galactic languages as an idiom meaning the ultimate red line, the one thing you never threaten. Young humans grew up knowing their species was both feared and respected. They learned about the war in school, about why it happened, about what their parents and soldiers did to bring the children home. Some found it inspiring. Some found it sobering. All of them understood the lesson. Peace is precious, but defending your family is sacred. 20 years after the war, a human explorer ship discovered a new species at the edge of the galaxy. They were called the Neithral, and they were aggressive and territorial. Their first response to meeting humans was to attack the explorer ship. The human ship defended itself and retreated. Then it reported to the human defense fleet. The galaxy held its breath. Would humanity overreact? Would this small incident trigger another war? Instead, humanity sent diplomats backed by a small military escort. They explained to the Neithral that attacking was unacceptable but understandable given the surprise of first contact. They offered to start over, to establish proper diplomatic relations, to share technology and culture. The Neithral, seeing the power of the human escort ships, agreed. The galaxy relaxed. Humanity was still humanity, still preferring peace, still willing to talk first. But everyone noticed that the small military escort was actually a battle group capable of destroying a planet. Humanity was taking no chances. On Earth, the memorial in Geneva continued to receive visitors every day. New names had been added over the years, soldiers who died in other conflicts or accidents. But the original 200,000 children's names remained at the center, the heart of the memorial. Parents still brought their children to see it. Veterans still served as guides, telling the story to anyone who would listen. And in orbit above Earth, the warship stood guard, silent, powerful, ready. A human poet wrote words that were inscribed at the entrance to the memorial. They became famous across the galaxy, translated into 100 languages, quoted in schools and speeches. We chose peace because war cost too much. We chose forgiveness because hate was too heavy. We chose patience because anger clouds judgment, but we will never choose helplessness. We will never choose weakness. We will never allow harm to come to our children without response. This is not a threat. This is a promise. We will protect what we love, always. 50 years after the war, the generation of children who had been taken were now middle-aged adults. Some had children of their own. They told their kids about being scared on the cradle, about the moment human soldiers came for them, about being reunited with their parents. "Were you angry?" one child asked her mother. "At first, yes, then just scared, then relieved when we were rescued." "Are you angry now?" The mother thought about it. "No, not anymore. The people responsible face justice. The galaxy changed because of what happened to us. Good things came from it, even though it was terrible." "Would you do it again, if it meant the galaxy learned this lesson?" "No," the mother said firmly. "No child should have to go through that, but we did, and we survived, and we made sure it meant something. That's all we can do." The child thought about that. "I'm joining the defense fleet when I'm old enough." "I know," the mother said sadly. "Half your generation is. You all want to protect others the way you were protected." "Is that bad?" "No, it's noble. I'm just sad that you feel you have to." "The universe isn't safe, Mom. You taught me that. We have to make it safe." The mother hugged her daughter. "Just remember that the goal is peace. The weapons are tools, not the purpose. We defend so that others can live without fear. That's what makes us different." The child nodded against her mother's shoulder. She understood. Her generation understood. They had learned the lesson in the most painful way possible. The galaxy could be beautiful and peaceful, but it required strength to maintain that peace. It required vigilance to protect the innocent. It required the willingness to fight when all other options failed. Humanity had learned that lesson twice. Once when they nearly destroyed themselves. Once when they discovered that choosing peace didn't mean others would choose it too. They would never forget either lesson. And across the galaxy, every species remembered what happened when someone threatened human children. They remembered the speed of the response, the fury of the attack, the precision of the justice that followed. They remembered, and they were careful. The memorial on Earth bore witness to it all. 200,000 names and 2,400 names, carved in stone, eternal reminders of the price of peace and the cost of its violation. Visitors to the memorial often saw the same thing, humans standing quietly, reading names, touching the wall, sometimes crying, sometimes just standing. And if you asked them what they were thinking, they gave the same answer every time. Remembering, so it never happens again. The galaxy remembered too. It was the most expensive lesson in history, and it was learned permanently.